Hey, you guys, Chef Clay Peden here with Central Arizona College. Today in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about potatoes and their makeup and what they're known as, their starches and so forth like that. So after and in between some of the lecture, we're going to do a couple demos. And stay tuned because there is going to be a part 2 to this video where there will be a lot more demonstration on cooking of potatoes. So potatoes, grains, and pasta are collectively known as starches. And starches are staple foods. And staple food is a food that defines a cuisine and gives meals substance. All three foods are high in starchy carbohydrates, low in fat, and commonly part of a very well-balanced meal. Pomme de terre means apple of the earth, and in French is French for potatoes. They are known as one of the few vegetables native to the New World. Potatoes are very hardy and easy to grow, making them a very inexpensive and widely available. The average person in the United States alone eats 35 pounds of fresh potatoes and 50 pounds of frozen potatoes per year. Now, when buying potatoes, you want to choose some that are heavy and very firm with a nice clean skin and few eyes and no blemishes. Avoid those with a lot of eyes, sprouts, maybe some green tint or some green streaks, some soft spots, cracks, or cut edges. And note that the size A is the bigger potato than the size B. A size B must be between 1.5 and 2.25 inches in diameter. Now you have size C potatoes, or what we call creamers, and they're known as the smallest, measuring 3/4 to 1 and around 5/8 in diameter. Now, new potatoes are small, immature potatoes of any variety, and they are harvested before their starches are even fully developed. We're going to talk about fingerling potatoes, and when we talk about fingerling potatoes, they tend to be very low in starch, and they are good for roasting and potato salads and so forth. And they're generally small, long, and oblong with very good flavor. A Russian banana is what they call one of the potatoes, and they look like a small banana, but they have a very firm texture and a rich, buttery flavor. The red-streaked French fingerling has a very nutty flavor, and the red ruby croissant, it has a strong, earthy flavor. Then we're going to go in and we're going to talk about our purple potatoes. Now, some people call them purple, some people call them blue. It's fine. It doesn't really matter. But they have a very deep purple skin. The flesh is bright purple, becoming higher and becoming lighter when they're cooked. They're a very mealy potato with a flavor and texture similar to your average russet potato. The most common varieties are blue and Carib, which were also quite popular in the mid-19th century. Next, you're going to have what we call our red potatoes. Now, red potatoes are the very waxy potatoes that some of you might use in your households. And red potatoes have a very thin red skin. They're crisp. They're very white and very waxy flesh. And it's best suited for boiling or steaming. They tend to hold up very well together. They do not have that dry, mealy texture that successful baking requires. They're round instead of long or oblong. And the popular varieties are Red Bliss, your Red Pontiacs, or your Norland red potatoes. The next potato we're going to talk about in this lecture is our russet potatoes. Now, that's the most common potato that you're probably going to have in your household that you've used in the past. And your russet potatoes are commonly referred to as your Idaho potatoes. They are standard baking potatoes. So every time you have a baked potato, that's mainly what you're going to be doing is a russet potato. They're long with rough reddish brown skin, and they have a very mealy flesh. Now, russets are excellent baked and are the best potatoes for frying. But when you're boiling, they tend to fall apart. So you don't want to use russet potatoes when you're doing boiling. White potatoes, on the other hand, are available year-round, and they're available in round and long varieties. They have a thin, tender skin with a kind of a wazy yellow or white flesh. Their round white potatoes are also referred to as a chef potato or an all-purpose potato. They're usually cooked with moist heat or used for sauteing because they stay well together. Now, one of my favorite potatoes are the Yukon Gold potatoes, and they're another variety of the white potato known as the Yukon Gold. It is a medium-sized potato, slightly flattened, oval potato, and Yukon Golds have a delicate pale yellow skin with shallow pink eyes. Now, their pale yellow flesh has a very creamy texture, a rich, buttery, nutty flavor, and taste fabulous. They're suitable for most cooking methods and will retain their yellow color when baked, boiled, or fried. We're going to move on now to your standard sweet potatoes. Now, most of the sweet potatoes we have were usually during the holidays, such as Thanksgiving or in the fall. But sweet potatoes are good year-round. And two types of sweet potatoes are commonly available. Now, one has a yellowy flesh and a dry, mealy texture, and it's known as a white sweet potato. Another one has a darker orange moisture flesh and is very high in sugar, known as a red sweet potato. Both of them have very thick skin, and you should choose based on the desired degree of sweetness that you want when you're picking a sweet potato. Your red sweet potato are more of your sweet potato pie, candied sweet potatoes, and so forth, because they're a lot sweeter and have a lot more sugar intake. Now, people think yams and sweet potatoes are the same thing. They're not. Yams are less sweet than sweet potatoes, okay? But they both can be used interchangeably. The flesh of yams ranges from a creamy white to a deep red. Now, yams are actually Asian in origin and are now found in Africa, South America, and the southern United States. So now that we know a little bit about the different types of potatoes, let's talk about the nutrition that you get from potatoes. Now, potatoes contain a very high percentage of easily digested complex carbohydrates and little or no fat. They are a very good source for minerals and vitamins, especially vitamin B6, vitamin BC, potassium, although much of the vitamin C can be destroyed when they are cooked in the liquid, of course, though. Mealy potatoes, also known as starchy potatoes, have a very high starch content and a thick skin. They are best for baking and are often referred to simply as bakers when ordered from your purveyor or your supplier. The low sugar content of a mealy potato allows them to be deep fried long enough to fully cook. Because of the mild reaction, remember the cook, when you cook that, sugars come toward the front and causes them to brown faster. So that's why they're used in that. Now, all-purpose potatoes have a medium starchy content, somewhere between mealy and waxy potatoes, which makes them very suitable for most cooking methods. Although they may fall apart, though, when they do get boiled. Your waxy potatoes have a low starch content and a very thin skin. They're best for boiling and will hold their shape better when used in soups. They do not develop that desired fluffy texture, though, when they're baked. Okay, so on this table that you see in this video right now, we're going to talk a little bit about the comparison of mealy and waxy potatoes. On the first one, you will read your russet, your white rose, or your purple potatoes. Now, those are all going to be a mealy potato. And later on, we're also going to talk about how purple potato is really an all-purpose potato as well. But those are going to be in the mealy category. Their content of starch is very high. Their moisture level is very low, and their sugar level is very low. So what these are used best for is to bake and deep fry. And that is because their moisture is so low. Now, when you get down to the next one, your all-purpose potatoes, you're going to have your Yukon Golds and your purple potatoes. The starch in those are going to be pretty medium. The moisture is medium, and their sugar content is medium as well. Those are going to be good for your bake, your boil, or your deep fry. The last one are your red or your new immature potatoes, your white finishing yellow potatoes, or your fingerling potatoes. These are going to be waxy potatoes. And these are very low in starch and very high in moisture and sugar. These are great for boiling or sauteing. Now, storing potatoes are very important. temperatures of the storage of your potatoes need to be stored between 50 and 65 degrees. Do not store raw potatoes in your refrigerator. At temperatures below 40 degrees, potato starch turns into sugar, and then the potatoes with a high sugar content also burn more easily when they're fried. So potatoes should be stored in a dark room, as light promotes chlorophyll production as well, and that is what turns your potato green and it gets bitter. A green patch indicates the possible presence of solanine, a toxin harmful if eaten in large amounts. Any green patches should be peeled away. Solanine is also present in the eyes and the sprouts, and if they have to, they should be removed and discarded before cooking. Under proper conditions, fresh baking or general purpose potatoes should last about 2 months. New potatoes will only keep for several weeks. Do not wash your potatoes until you're ready to use, as washing promotes spoilage. Once peeled, potatoes should be stored covered in water and refrigerated to prevent enzymatic browning. Most potatoes are considered done when they are soft and tender, or offer very little resistance when pierced with a fork. Fried potatoes should have a crisp, golden brown surface. Again, you're going to hear me say that GBD, golden brown and delicious, and that interior should be moist and tender. When you are looking at roasting or a baking potato, potatoes are often roasted with meat or poultry, of course, as most of us know. And as they roast, they become coated with fat and the drippings from the meat, and they released from the meat as it's cooked. Mealy potatoes, such as a russet, are ideal for baking, and the skin is left intact. Although it may be pierced with a fork to allow steam to escape, a true baked potato should not be wrapped in aluminum foil or cooked in a microwave. This will change the cooking method to steaming and prevents that crisp skin from forming on the potato that we're looking for. A properly baked potato should be white and fluffy, not yellowish or real soggy. Once baked, potatoes can be eaten plain or with butter, sour cream, and other garnishes such as cheese, bacon, chives, whichever you'd like. Or they can be used in other recipes. All right, guys, so if you're frying potatoes, and you notice there might be some issues with frying the potatoes to get that nice golden brown and crisp potato. On this chart here, you're going to see that this is a troubleshooting chart for deep fried potatoes. So the problem might be, why is the color too dark? Well, the cause is you've either cooked it too long, your oil was dirty, your oil was too hot, or the potato just had an excessive amount of sugar in it. The solution is to reduce your frying time, maybe change your oil with some new one. Check your thermostat and reduce the temperature. Remember, we don't have to cook everything on high, and fry longer at a slower temperature. Now, if your color might be too light with your fried potato, maybe your oil's not hot enough, it's too cold. And it might be, again, because it's new oil. So it also could have a slow recovery time as well. And what that is the recovery time is when you put a cold potato in the oil, that's like putting an ice cube in water. It's going to drop the temperature of the oil. So a slow recovery time it just takes a little bit longer for that oil to get back up to temp. The solution with these, if your oil's too cold, check the thermostat, increase your temperature. Again, your oil will darken with use and fry in a smaller batch. If you have too much excessive color variation with all your fried potatoes, maybe because you have fried the potato twice, excessive sugar in the potatoes, your potatoes haven't really been submerged completely in the fat. And the solution for that would be fry your potato only once. So when you take all your potatoes out of your oil, make sure you get every potato out. Fry longer at a lower temperature. Place fewer items in a basket and add more oil. Now, if your potatoes are sticking together, that means your basket is overfull. You're not allowing the room for the oil to coat around the whole potato. So the solution on that would be simple. It's just place fewer items in your basket and go up while you're frying them and shake them every once in a while if you're using a deep fryer. The last one is going to be your potatoes are just coming out way too greasy. The cause of that, your potatoes are too moist. If you've had them in water, if they've been frozen, you didn't dab them with a towel and dry them up, or maybe they're just dirty or old oil. Your oil could be too cold, and again, your basket could be over full. The solution on that, dry your potatoes completely before frying, okay? Go ahead and change your oil. Check your thermostat, increase the temperature if your oil is too cold, and again, place fewer items in the basket. You want the oil to surround the potato. You don't want to crowd a bunch of potatoes in your oil. Now, when it comes to sauteing or pan frying a potato, waxy potatoes are the best for sauteing or pan frying. Often they're first parboiled or even fully cooked, and then they're cooked in fat. And the fat must be hot before adding the potatoes to the fat you're cooking in, so that the potatoes will develop a crust without absorbing too much fat. Now, sauteed potatoes should have a crisp, well-browned crust and a very tender interior, and they should neither be soggy nor greasy. But potatoes can be sauteed or pan-fried by two methods, tossing and still frying. The tossing method is used to cook relatively small pieces of potatoes in a small amount of fat, and potatoes are tossed using pans with sloped sides so that they brown evenly on all sides. The still frying method creates a disc-shaped potato product. Shredded or sliced potatoes are added to a pan, usually covering the pan's whole complete bottom, and are allowed to cook without stirring or flipping until they're well browned on the first side. The entire mass is then turned and cooked on the second side. Hey guys, I just want to add in there real quick a big safety alert about cooked potatoes. You want to be very careful when you are storing cooked potatoes. They have a very high concentration and of moisture and stuff, and you have introduced moisture to them, which can form into a bacteria or a virus known as botulism. So cooked potato dishes, especially those with cream, butter, or custard, require time and temperature control for safety. They must be held for service at 135 degrees or higher, and be sure to reheat potato dishes always to 165 degrees or higher before serving leftover potatoes. All right, guys, the first demo for potatoes today is we're going to make a dish called Hungarian potatoes. It's a very simple sauteed potato dish. But to get started, you're going to add potatoes with tomatoes in it. I like using the Roma tomatoes. Now, the one thing you want to do is you want to make sure you concasse a tomato. You might ask yourself, what is a concasse? In French cooking, they call these concasse tomatoes because you only want the supreme of any vegetable or fruit that you are going to cook. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to peel a tomato and de-seed it, and that's the tomatoes we want to use. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Roma tomato, and I'm going to take my knife, and I'm going to just, at the very tip of the tomato, I'm going to place an X in the tomato. That's going to allow the skin to remove itself from the meat of the tomato. After that, I'm going to turn it, and you have the end here where the stem is. I'm going to then take my knife, and I'm just going to very carefully remove the stem part. Okay, it should look like this in the end when you have the stem part removed. Be really careful. Don't cut yourself. Okay, let's dig this out just a little bit more. All right, so now that I have those out, I'm going to take my trash and just set it off the side. What I have here is I have a pot of water that's boiling. You're going to literally cook these for just a few seconds until you start seeing the skin separate from the tomato. After I get done, and you guys will see me do this, I will pull them out with a pair of tongs. We're going to let them rest in an ice bath. That way the tomatoes don't continue to cook. So now we're going to, like I said, we're going to place the tomatoes in your boiling water. We're going to give them a few seconds, and when they're done, we're going to show you exactly how the skin has started to peel away from the tomatoes. Now here in America, we rather would just cook and get it done. So when we chop up tomatoes, we don't take this extra step to concasse. We don't care if there's tomato seeds in it and all the pulp and the skin. But in Europe, they treat their food with a little more love than we do, and they take their time, and therefore that's why this step is necessary. All right, guys, my tomatoes here are just about done. And as you can see here, the skin has peeled off, almost like when you get a really bad sunburn, when your back or stomach or arms and stuff peel. It's the same concept. I'm going to take these and I'm going to now actually shock them in a little bit of cold water. Let's turn our stove off. We don't need it right now. And we're now going to just pull these out after they've cooled slightly. And you can just take your fingers and literally rub the skin and peel the skin right off. So let me finish up these tomatoes and we'll be right back with the next step. All right, now that we've got all our tomatoes peeled, it is now time to clean them out. Two different ways you can do it. You can cut them right in half, and you can take a spoon and crave them out or anything you want. But what I like to do is I like to just roll and cut the middle out. And this right here in European cuisine, French cooking, this right here is what they call this is the unedible portion. They don't want the seeds and so forth like that. So now you are left with no seeds and no rind or the white pit of the tomato. And you also get that like gooey pulp out of the tomato. So all I'm going to do then is I'm going to come in and I'm just going to do a nice dice. And here on your dice, as you notice, you get rid of any bitter flavor from your fruit or vegetable when you take time to do this. And we just have the meat of the tomato. So I'm going to do this second one and we will be right back. All right, guys. Now what we're going to do here for your Hungarian potatoes, got a saute pan here, a skillet. We're going to add our 2 ounces of butter. We're going to get that melting. And I've got about a half an onion here chopped. We're going to add that to the pot as well. Make sure you get all that good onion out of there. And what we're looking at doing is when we melt our butter, we're just mainly looking to cook the onions to where they've clarified a little bit and softened. I'm also to this, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika. Now this dish, don't be afraid to try this dish. It's a very good dish and it's very, very simple and easy to make. Okay, so I've got the paprika mixed in there. Cook these onions down. After this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my 2 Roma tomatoes. I'm going to stir those in. And we're going to let this reduce down and soften up a little bit. All right, what we're going to do next is we have some thickly sliced potatoes. As you see, they're just nice and sliced like so. We're going to dump those in. We're going to kind of stir those around, get them settled in that pan. And the trick is I have here in this pot, I have a little bit of heated beef stock. And what you want to do is you want to add beef stock, but you want to add just enough to where it covers all the potatoes. So it's going to pretty much stew in this beef stock. Now, a lot of people will want to add salt right now. I'm not going to add any salt to it yet because this is going to reduce, and you're going to cook this until the beef stock is almost all the way evaporated and the potatoes are done. And so what you're going to do by evaporating the stock is you're going to concentrate the flavors. So you always want to make sure that you realize how you're cooking, what cooking method you're using, and add salt at the end to taste. Because if we reduce this down like what we're going to do, what's going to happen is it's going to concentrate the flavor of the salt as well. So you don't want to do that. Okay. So all you got to do is just let it go. Just come by and stir it gently from time to time. When this is done, I will show you how we're going to season it to taste, and that'll be it. All right, so now on our Hungarian potatoes, if you notice all the moisture is evaporated, the potatoes are nice and fork tender. They look absolutely delicious. Like I said, try this dish. You will be pleased. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with some salt. And remember, it is a potato, so they do take some salt. But like I said earlier, also remember that we used beef stock, which can get salty once it concentrates. And we're going to hit it with a little bit of black pepper. Going to mix that in. And you are ready to plate. When you get this plated, what you're going to do is you're going to take just a little bit of your, we have some chopped parsley here. We're going to take just a little bit of chopped parsley. We're going to sprinkle on the top on our plate. And that is it for the garnish. Hope you enjoyed this dish, and I'll see you on the next one. All right, guys. So here what we got is we have a mixture of mashed potatoes, and we'll go over on video 2 on how to properly make mashed potatoes, because yes, there is a proper technique to making that as well. But in this mashed potatoes that I have placed in a piping bag, I've actually added a couple egg yolks and a little bit of nutmeg to them to give them the flavor that we're looking for this dish called potato croquettes. So what I have here is I have a sheet pan, and I've got a little bit of flour that we've dusted on it, and we're going to pipe out some rolls on there and form them, and we'll go through a breading station and deep fry them. All right, everybody, so now that we have our sheet pan here just lightly dusted with some flour, you can use a tip in the piping bag if you wish. I just go ahead and cut them off. You want them about, I'd say probably a good 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch in size. All I'm going to do now is I'm just going to slowly start piping long lines of the potato mixture onto the floured sheet pan. All right, so now that we've got a couple rolls of the potatoes piped out on your sheet pan, take a knife and you want to cut them into about 2-inch pieces in length. So you're just going to come through, cut them out. It's almost similar to eating a deep fried mashed potato ball. If you guys have seen those on the internet, those seems like they've become a big popular thing. So now what we have is we have our standard breading station. So our standard breading station is flour, egg yolks, and then we're going to coat with some panko breadcrumbs. So what I like to do is I like to just peel these sides away, and I'm going to pick it up. And if you have to roll them a little bit, you have to roll them a little bit and kind of straighten them back up. Okay. Another good way to do this is actually to slightly maybe par freeze or chill them before you bread them, and then they're easier to keep their shape and the hold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually dip one of these in some flour. Then I'm going to actually go into my egg yolk. And remember, one dry hand, one wet makes a big, big difference. When it comes to this, you can have one hand that's clean. Okay, and then right into my panko breadcrumbs. Make sure they're covered really well with the panko breadcrumbs. Knock off any excess that you have and set them aside till you're ready to fry. All right, so when you're ready, we've got a couple here that we've already fried up. When you're ready, you're just going to drop this into your hot oil, and you're just going to fry it up. Remember, the potatoes are already cooked, so you're just going to put a nice fry on it, golden up those panko breadcrumbs. And remember, when you do pull them out, one of the most important things is before they cool, go ahead and just hit them with a little bit of salt. Real easy, really simple, and really good. All right. I'm going to teach you how to properly make a baked potato. You might be wondering, Chef, I already know how to make a baked potato. Let's see if that's true or not. This is the most common mistake that people use in making a baked potato. A baked potato is baked. Once you wrap a baked potato in aluminum foil, which I do this, I throw it away. I don't want aluminum foil. I actually want a baked potato. If I'm going to cover this baked potato with aluminum foil, it is a cooking style called impapillote. You are actually steaming your potato, not baking it. So the proper way to bake potato is without aluminum foil. Now, the first thing I do with the baked potatoes, of course, I'm going to run them under water. I'm going to scrub them, get all that dirt off of them. Then I'm going to take a fork and I'm just going to pierce it just a couple times. Okay. And I have a sheet tray here with some already done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take a little bit of oil. Use any oil. You can use olive oil or whichever you like. And I'm going to put on the potato. And I'm going to massage the oil into the potato. What this oil is going to do is going to help in two different things. It's going to crisp up the outside of that potato skin, which is absolutely delicious to eat. And it's also going to help trap some of the moisture within inside the potato. So your potato is very nice and fluffy and moist. On top, I have some rock salt here. I'm going to just place some rock salt right up on top of this potato. And I'm going to place this in the oven at a 350-degree oven, and when you can stick a fork in them, they're done. It's that simple. Hey, so hopefully after you watch this video on potatoes, you've learned a little bit of education about different types of potatoes you might be using in your home. And there will be a part 2 to this video, so stay tuned, and I will see you on that one. Thanks again, guys, and keep cooking.